Hi, this is Mr. West, and today we're doing a Khan Academy tutorial called slope-intercept from 2 points. So this is an exercise talking about slope-intercept form. Let's go ahead and get started. Two things you need to know before we tackle this first problem. We need to know what slope-intercept form is. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. A better way to understand it is y equals the slope times x plus the y-intercept. So b is the y-intercept, m is the slope, and x and y are just the inputs of x and the outputs for y. Okay, so let's look at the first problem, and I'll show you how to do it. Complete the equation of the line through 2, 1, and 5, negative 8. So the first thing I have written here, this is step 1, is you're going to want to find what is the slope. So the slope is defined as the rise over the run. So if you're thinking like a line that looks like this, it's basically how steep it is. So how much it goes vertically, that's your rise, and how much it goes horizontally, and that's your run. And that's what consists slope. Now, we can mathematically define the rise as the difference in y's. Okay, so the difference in y's is your rise, and the run is the difference in x's. The way I like to remember it is you rise with the y's and you run from your x. That's just a way to remember which calculations we need to do. So the second step, well, still with the first step, we haven't calculated our slope at all yet. So with the first step, what I like to do is I like to find the difference in y's. So the first thing to do that is I like to label. So I need to label these points. The 2 points I'm going to label are, I have a lot of highlighting going on. Let me get rid of some of it. All right, there we go. The first thing I need to do with finding that is I need to label those 2 points. That's a little thick. So let's erase that. The first thing I'm going to do is label the points. I keep saying that, but let's get to it finally. So we have x1 there. I want to move this step 1 somewhere. There we go. And the temptation is to call this x2, but that's not what x2 is. x2 is the x-coordinate of the second point. Now, if you're wondering which point is x1, it doesn't matter. As long as you do this, label the y-coordinate y1. The numbers for the x's and y's need to match in the point. So for 2, 1, for example, that's got to have an x1 and a y1. It can't have like an x1 and a y2 or an x1 and an x2. It's got to have x1, y1. And the next point has got to have x2, y2. So we labeled it correctly. The second thing we're going to do is we are just going to plug in those points. So I'm going to use this as my template, and I'm going to take y2, which I know is negative 8, and I'm going to subtract positive 1. I put it in parentheses because sometimes you're going to get subtracting a negative number, and you're going to have to turn this to a positive. Okay, so that's something just to be aware of. That's not the case in this one, but just something to be aware of. Now we have our x's, so our x2 is 5. We're going to subtract 2. And now we just simplify. We're going to evaluate the top. We have negative 8 minus 1. That's going to give me a negative 9. And then we have a 5 minus 2, and that gives me positive 3. I need to reduce this fraction. They both have factors of 3, so divide top and bottom by 3. And that gives me negative 3 over 1, or simply negative 3. So I have my slope now. Okay, so back in this original equation, y equals mx plus b, I finally have my m. So let's go ahead and plug in what we know so far. So what we know so far is y equals, and I know my m. My m is negative 3. I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. Okay, and then let's see what else do I have. This purple doesn't stay. X, and then plus b. So I'm going to make b a different color just so we see that we're trying to solve for it. So plus b. That's our y-intercept. There's a couple different ways to find the y-intercept, and I think probably the easiest way for most students is to do the following. We're going to pick an x and y value. In most of the cases, just picking x1 is fine. Okay, it works. And we're going to plug in those x and y values for x and y. Now, it technically doesn't matter. We could pick 5 and negative 8 instead of 2, 1. But either way. Usually you look for like the easier numbers, but we can just, if it's more simple for you, just plug in your x1 and y1 into x and y. What does that look like? Well, it looks like this. We're going to have, whoops, wrong pen. We're going to have, and actually I want to change this to purple. I know I wanted to make it a different color, but I'll just highlight it. Take a look. So I'll highlight it. let's make it green. That's what I'm trying to find. I'm going to erase this other stuff. There we go. Okay. So what I'm looking for here, I'm going to plug in my value for x. Okay, that was my x1. I'm just put x1 underneath it real small. Normally you don't do that. Okay, but I just wanted to show you what I'm plugging in. So we have -3 there. I'm going to get my purple out again. Equals plus. And then my y value was y1. Okay, right there. So that is 1. And that was my y1. And then plus my b. And b is what we're trying to find. That is my y-intercept. So you can see here we have a new equation. This is probably the hardest step. Okay, what I just did is step 2. And that's just plugging in the values for x and y in m. So that's plug in m, x, and y. And again, you can use x1 and y1 for x and y. You can actually use x2 or y2. I already mentioned that. Okay, now that we have one variable, we can solve for that variable. So you're going to have to do some algebra here. We're trying to get the b by itself, so we need to do some calculations. First thing I'm going to do is order of operations. I need to multiply the -3 times the 2. That gives me -6 plus b equals +1. The b is not by itself, so I'm going to do the opposite of what's happening, which is add a +6, and I get 7 equals b. Now I'm done, okay? I have everything. I have my b value. I have my m value. Let me write my m value here a little bit more clearly. M equals -3, so I have my m value, and I can put everything into slope-intercept form right there. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in, where my -3, let me show you what it looks like. It's going to look at this. Y equals -3x plus 7. Okay, so my b was 7, my m was -3. And the part that confuses students is you're going to go back to just putting x and y. You don't put the 2, 1 that you plugged in earlier, because this is the general form. Okay, this applies to any situation on this continuous, infinitely going line. Okay, so we're going to type in y equals, that's already typed in for us right here, y equals. So I just need -3x plus 7. So I'm going to go here and type in -3x plus 7 and check it, and there we go. I forgot to mention, I can't believe I didn't do this at the beginning. This was a special request video by the Chatta family, so thank you so much for requesting that. And if you have your own requests, make sure to leave a comment below. I'll cover any topic as long as you give me the worksheet or the exercise, specifically in Khan Academy or CUDA or math drills, whatever it is. Okay, so thank you so much for that request. Now, number 2, complete the equation of the line through 2, -2, and 4, 1. So let's go a little bit faster this time. We already know that we want the slope first, and we need to label these points. So the first thing I like to do is label. I do x1, y1, x2, y2. So I'm going to do my change in my y's. So that's, actually, it's a +1 minus a -2. This is what I was talking about, this exact situation. And then I have 4 minus 2. So in the top, because it's minus minus, it's going to turn into plus. Always be careful with minuses when we're calculating our slope. So 1 plus 2 gives me 3, and then I have 4 minus 2, and that gives me 2. I just double check that. We have 4 plus 2, that's 3. 4 minus 2, okay. So we have 3 over 2. This one's going to be a little tougher just because it's fraction, but it's not impossible. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and plug in y equals, and then m is 3 over 2 x plus b. Now we're solving for b. We want b by itself, so we're going to have to substitute some values for x and y. Now, before I chose 2 and -2, and I think I'm going to do that again this time, actually. So my x is 2 and my y is -2. This is not so bad because if I multiply 3 over 2, my first step in this is order of operations, so this is my first step. 3 over 2 times 2, really that's 2 over 1, and I get 6 over 2, which is equal to 3. Another way I like to do it is just cancel it like this. You go like that. Okay, the 2 in the top cancels with the 2 in the bottom, and you're left with just 3 plus b equals -2. Now I need to subtract 3 from both sides because we're doing the opposite operation, and we get b equals -5, and I'm done. I just need to plug everything in. I have 3 over 2 for m, I have -5 for b, and I leave my x how it is. So I have let's go fraction, 3 over 2. You could also use 1.5, the decimal form, but if that confuses you, don't worry about it. Just type in exactly what you should see. And I think it was -5, right? Okay, you could either do plus -5 or just make it minus 5. That's the same thing. If my y-intercept is negative 5, I can just type in minus 5, and we're done. All right, next one. Let's see if we can go even faster this time. And you guys are hopefully catching on. Feel free to rewind or whatever you need to. Okay, I start with labeling. x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, and it doesn't matter. I could label the other one. Let's actually do that. I'm going to label this first one x1, y1. As long as you are consistent in your labeling and having an x and a y in the same numbers involved, you're absolutely fine. So m equals, my y2 this time is negative 1 minus 7, and then I have x2 is 3 minus 4. Okay, so a little bit tougher. Not impossible. I'm going to get negative 8, and I'm going to get negative 1. And if I have a negative over a negative, that's going to give me a positive. So my slope is positive 8. So far I have y equals 8x plus b. I still have a missing y-intercept. So I'm going to plug in values for x and y. I'm going to go ahead and just use my x1, y1 again. I could have used x2, y2, but I'm just going to go ahead and use x1, y1. I'm going to go 4, and I'm going to get 7 over here. So I have 32 plus b equals 7, because I had to multiply the 8 times the 4. I need to subtract 32 from both sides. Okay, and when I do that, I get b equals, and I think that is negative 25. Okay, so negative 25 is my y-intercept. 8 is my slope. Let's go ahead and plug those in. So I have y equals 8x minus 25. I'm going to double check that. Minus 25. 8 is my slope. Let's rock and roll. Okay, last question. We have here x1, y1, x2, y2. My slope is equal to negative 8 minus 3 over negative 8 minus a negative 10. Uh-oh, an alarm's going off in my head because I see that. Okay, I'm going to be careful simplifying. Negative 11 over, and that is 2. Ugh, not a great number to work with here, but that's what it is. Negative 8 minus 3. I like to double check. And then I have negative 8 minus a negative 10, and that is negative 11 over 2. Okay, so that's what it is. That's fine. We have y equals a negative 11 over 2, x plus b. I'm trying to solve for b now. I need to substitute x and y. Now, before I just plug in this, sometimes I like to consider, is it going to be easier to plug in x2, y2? And I could plug that point in, but I'm actually going to stick with the negative 10, 3. Okay, but always consider that. Sometimes you're going to see that there's much better options available. So I put negative 10 in for x. I'm going to plug in positive 3 for y. Now, if I have a negative 11 over 2 times negative 10, first off, it's going to be positive, equals a positive. Second off, I'm going to put this over 1, and then you can do some cross-canceling here. Now, if you want to just get a negative 110 over 2 and then divide, that's fine, but I'd rather just do this. So I cross that out. It's going to be positive because it's negative times negative, and I get positive 55 as my answer for that operation. Okay, so let me go ahead and type that in. We get positive 55 plus b equals 3. And then I need to subtract 55 to get b by itself, and I get negative 52 equals b. Another thing that trips up students is just doing operations like that. Little operations, students mess up all the time, so just be careful. So I have negative 11 over 2. Let me get that as a fraction. I'm going to put negative 11 over 2. I need to put x next to it, and it's minus 52. Double check. Minus 52, negative 11 over 2 should be good. Let's check it out. All right, we got it. Oh, something happened with that, but that was unusual. However, that was slope-intercept form in Khan Academy from 2 points. If you guys can do that, you know, you're looking pretty good at solving a lot of the problems that you're going to encounter in an algebra unit or geometry unit. Another way to do it is slope from 2 points. To do that, you can use point slope form. I talk about that in another video. If you guys want to check that, maybe I'll link it. Anyway, I hope to see you next time right here on Wes Explains Best. Thanks for watching.